Hey guys, how is everybody today? I hope everyone's alright. We're going to wait just a few minutes. Seems some folks will join the chat. Let me copy. I got hosed by YouTube. It did not save my live stream information when I set up the stream last night. So there was no notification that went out. So, yeah. Anyway, if you come along in the Facebook chat, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go over here. And do this. So if you want to come and watch it on YouTube, there's a link now. You can go do that. Hey, Katie. Hello, James. How are you guys? Good to see you. Oh, gosh. You know, it's weird. I put out 2 quick videos, and I'll be doing those every day. And I have more engagement on those than I do on my How to D&D videos. It's funny. It's really strange. Well, this will be a bit of a throwback today. Instead of 9, 10, 11, 12, how many ever viewers I usually have, I'll have like a really tiny number of them. But that's life, man. That's life. I got kind of hosed by Facebook. Or, I'm sorry, rather by YouTube. I set up the live stream in YouTube. Then I went and I set up the live stream in Facebook. And I thought everything was hunky-dory. So I come over into my studio area. And I'm like, okay, let's get the... this is perfect. I got 5 minutes. I can get everything set up. Get the Facebook stream all set up. Go over to YouTube. You don't have any current stream scheduled. I can see my computer screen across the studio. My work PC... And I can see, looking right now at YouTube, where I set up and scheduled the stream. I can see it. And when I log into YouTube over here, it's like, nah, you don't have any scheduled, man. So do me a favor, if you know, folks, share this link out, and we'll hang out for a few minutes before we get started. Try and bump these amateur numbers up. Those are amateur numbers. You got to pump those numbers up. And see what happens there. But anyway, how are you folks today? How's everyone doing? I hope you're all doing well. And to you, random viewer whom I don't know, over on Facebook. Or you know what I could do is, now that I've got the issue with Facebook remedied, I could just hypothetically, BS with you right now, and we could come back and do the lesson later today. We'll see. We'll see how many folks we get. Kevin Reynolds. Hello, how are you? But last night's AD&D game was a lot of fun. I want to see one thing real quick here. Sorry, I like to talk straight to you guys, and I got my face down in the computer, trying to cope with this disaster that was foisted off on me. Let's see. So one thing I wanted to point out, and this is really cool, 731 subscribers now on YouTube. That makes me very happy. I'm very glad that that 731 of you have decided to join us. That makes me extremely happy. Now, I realize there's not 731 people watching right now, but it's still very cool. It's still very, very cool. All right. I'll give it another couple of minutes, but I think this is about the best we're going to be able to do today because of YouTube's perfidy. It's perfidy, I tell you. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about thieves. We're going to be talking about thief skills and so on and etc. Hello, Aaron, Kevin, over on Facebook, the Book of Faces. So, before we get into that, though, I want to do the wrap up for last night's AD&D game. That was a lot of fun. I mean, it's always a lot of fun. You're probably never going to see me come in here and say, well, last night sucked. I mean, it potentially can, but anyway. So an interesting thing happened last night. I had to notice something. We had 5 players out. Now, normally you might say, oh, so would you have 1 player? I have a 12-person gaming roster. 5 players being out still leaves 7 to play. And so we had that. So a couple of players were out because of work things. I am just beset on all sides by technical problems today. My light over there just bit the dust. Anyway, hello, Aaron. Good to see you. And Tracy and Shelby, who, if you guys happen to catch this or any part of this, you're in our prayers and our thoughts. Get better, all of you. Tracy and Shelby were out. My buddy Jeff was out last night. He had matters to take care of. But I still had ample enough players to game with. The folks that were out consisted of, character-wise, a ranger, a bard, a thief, and an illusionist. Now, taken together with all the specialties in AD&D, and the things that they, all the specialties in those classes in AD&D, they by themselves constitute a separate adventuring party. So, everyone that was in attendance last night got the full bug. Everybody got the full experience, and I won't tell you about that. So, as happened last week, I ran the Giants Bag Gambit that Paul Stormberg had created based on Gary Gygax's Giants Bag Gambit creation. So, it's from Gary to Paul to me. This week, the party dealt with a fallout. Now, we did have a new gamer join us last night, Paul Bacleda, who is frequently in the chats, and I'm sure would be here if he'd known YouTube, if he'd known. But Paul brought his druid in and was upset by the fact that the party had essentially started building an outpost in the swamp near Castle Greyhawk with Daern's Instant Fortress and 2 buildings created via the Lyre of Building. So, yeah, he said, look, I'll help you with your quest, whatever it is you're doing, but when all is said and done, I get to burn those 2 wooden buildings down and return the land back to what it should be. All right. Fair enough. So, they then debated for a long time, much to Paul's dismay, I'm sure, because, You don't play AD&D to listen to people talk about disposing of poop. The Giant's Bag, if you missed the Giant's Bag, basically they got schnookered by a hill giant who took several thousand gold worth of gems and jewelry off of them and left them with a bag of holding full of fire giant poop. 1,500 pounds of it, so 3/4 of a long ton of doo-doo. So they debated a lot about what to do about it, and finally, I wanted to see the game move forward, so I just had one of the not present players' characters scoop up a bunch of gold, put it in his own backpack, grab the bag of holding, and say, I'm going to take this over to our men-at-arms. I'm going to give them, I think it was 400 gold pieces or something like that, to divide evenly amongst themselves and clean this bag out. I'm tired of this. So off he goes. He has the bag emptied, and we're off and running. The party returns to the city of Greyhawk, and there is some leveling up. There is some discussion and so forth. Back to the dungeons of Greyhawk. They did encounter some undead a couple of times, which, unless you're talking about undead like liches, specters, ghosts, etc., undead and high-level clerics, it's a fait accompli. Turn undead, they're disintegrated, we move on. So the party dealt quite ably with the 2 separate waves of undead I threw at them. The first one was actually ghouls they encountered in the swamp near their camp, random wilderness encounter, and that's auto-turn, auto-destroy for the level of clerics that are in the party. So I think that netted everyone a total of 85 experience points for everyone in the party for dealing with them. And then the next time they were in the Castle Greyhawk dungeons, they ran into wraiths, which weren't destroyed, but did have to be turned away. So the wraiths were sent scrambling, and that was all she wrote. Now, the next thing that they ran into was actually an imp. I don't want to say an NPC imp. It is a monster that has been advising them. And those players, they're so ungrateful. They don't take advice. They don't take this poor little imp is just trying to help them along in the dungeon, telling them about piles of treasure and where enemies might be, and they're trying to turn it and throw holy water at it and everything. So it just turned invisible and hung around above their heads, saying, "Hey guys, what's happening? How are you?" And just carrying on conversation. And in case you're wondering, yes, I model the imp very much after Lucy on the Matt Groening Netflix series Disenchantment. I highly recommend it. It's very good. It's got a lot of tongue-in-cheek Dungeons and Dragons jokes in it. You should absolutely check it out. So, right down to the name, this particular imp, Lucy, was trying to tell them where they could find a bad guy that they were hunting, and they were entirely ungrateful. But after that, it was getting a little late at that point, and I don't as such recall if they had an encounter with anything. But after they dispensed with Lucy, they moved on. While they were in the city of Greyhawk previously, in the night's adventure, they did sell and bank a lot of treasure, bought some useful magic items. Some characters leveled. The magic user, Cleric of the party, who's a dual-classed human, and we will talk about dual-classing at the appropriate time in the best practices and learning how to D&D methodologies. he actually got to level up in Magic User. I believe he's a 4th level Magic User now. So all in all, it was a fun night. Lots of fun had by everyone. Y'all just going to let me talk if my mic's disconnected? No, okay, it's good. It's good. Okay. So, with all that said, let's go ahead and jump straight into the real meat of the topic of discussion. And that is the next class. We've talked about magic users, we've talked about fighters, we talked about clerics yesterday, and I touched towards the end on their turn undead abilities. Guys, I cannot emphasize how powerful that is. Many times I've played people who swear up and down. They're like, I get it. I'm playing a holy warrior. I can cast spells. I can wear armor. I can carry a mace. Awesome. And you can turn undead. Oh yeah, and I can turn undead. And the party will get in a fight with undead, and they're not doing anything about them other than swinging a mace. Or if there's not enough room on the front, they're just standing back, curing light wounds. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, these are zombies, or these are skeletons. You could just will them away, or at least attempt to will them away. If you're playing a cleric in 1st edition AD&D, you've got to remember, turn undead can make a significant percentage of low-level encounters a snap. It's not permanent. It lasts 3 to 12 turns. Once you get high enough level, you can destroy undead. You just hold aloft your holy symbol, and a set number, or not a set number, but a random number of undead will literally just be blasted out of existence. So, yeah, don't undervalue your turn undead. Even if it's just 1 or 2 in a low-level game, even if it's just 1 or 2, and you only had the chance to, like a 45% chance, take the shot. It might take pressure off the party that is between you and seeing your god face to face. So, turn undead. Now, with that said regarding the cleric, let's take a look at one of the more interesting classes. And after we look at this guy, the thief, we're gonna start diving into the subclasses. But of the main classes, I would say the thief is probably one of the coolest, and yet at the same time, one of the most misunderstood. So let's get down here, and I'll zoom in. So we have the thief. Just going to zoom in there. Now, I know a lot of later editions call this guy a rogue. But again, this is AD&D times. We're talking about a thief. Rogue is a level title of thieves. The thief in AD&D is a durable, and I mean durable as in it stood the test of time until people started calling it a rogue. But it's a durable, very flexible class that has a lot of options. If you're coming into D&D, into 1st edition AD&D, and you are used to playing a character with a smorgasbord of different fiddly abilities that you can do, and then you can pile on the benefits of being a demi-human and never worry about your level cap, as it were, the thief might be the character for you. Thieves have fairly low requirements for entry into the class, although I would point out that you want a high dex in your thief. Not just because it makes you harder to hit, but because it better empowers your thieving abilities. And I want to make that distinction too. Abilities. People say, oh, I thought you said D&D didn't have a skill system, Bill. It doesn't. Thief abilities are to be more reckoned with, like the cleric's ability to turn undead, or the abilities that we'll see that paladins and rangers get, or, you know, the fighter is the ultimate expression of puissance, skill at arms. This is the ultimate expression of a thief's ability to do thiefly things. Any race can be a thief and level endlessly in it, except for half-orcs. Half-orcs cap at 8th level as a thief, but they can go infinitely as an assassin, as we'll see when we talk about the assassin, which is a subclass of the thief. So right here over on page 27, having a dex greater than 15 gains you the benefit of being able to add a bonus of 10% to experience awards to him or her by the referee. So when you get your XP, you get 1,000 XP, you have a dex of 16, it becomes 1,100. Very helpful. Now, it notes here, this is regarding alignment. All thieves are neutral or evil, although they can be neutral good, rarely, and lawful or chaotic nature. Most thieves tend toward evil. Right here, Gary's view of thieves and what they do may vary from the way you wish to play them. If you want to play the thief with Heart of Gold, who is lawful neutral or neutral good, knock yourself out. While I agree that thieves should tend towards the neutral axis, I don't necessarily agree that they all need to be evil. You may have a very different approach with your thief. If your DM is running a city adventure, though, you need to be aware that the prime time and place to exercise your thief skills and to adventure and get XP will be in picking pockets and breaking into houses, which are not inherently good things to do. So just be aware of that. And we get to that. The primary functions of the thief are picking pockets, opening locks, finding and removing traps, moving silently, and hiding in shadows. And these functions are basically self-explanatory. Well, no, they're not, Gary. We're going to have to get into those. So, picking pockets or folds of a garment or girdle also includes such activities as pilfering and filching small items. It is done by light touch and sleight of hand. So, if you're a thief and you're like, hey, I want to shoplift, you know, I want to palm this ruby that the shopkeeper left out on the table, that falls under the auspice of picking pockets. Opening locks. Opening locks is key. See what I did there? Opening locks is a key function for thieves. If you want to see something fascinating, this is kind of in parallel to the thief, but when you think of how your thief might go about picking locks, what they might do, if you want a beautiful mental image of a first edition AD&D thief, go watch the film Lady Hawk. We'll wait. Okay, you back? Good. Matthew Broderick's character is a very high-level thief by his actions in that. And picks locks successfully at least 3 times, which is not a given for a low-level thief. But also, check out the YouTube channel, The Lockpicking Lawyer. That guy is amazing at lockpicking. Just, it's incredible. And he has custom thieves tools. So if you want to know about picking locks, those are 2 great resources. Finding and removing traps. Now, I joke with my players, anyone can find traps. And it's true. Anyone can find traps. Thieves have a chance to find traps without stepping on them. Locate traps, or the find trap spell for clerics, can actually be a thief's best friend. And I don't mean running some weird thief cleric multi-class or dual class. I mean being backed up by the cleric. Because find traps always works. At lower levels, thieves locate traps, not so much. Now here's something that kind of becomes a bit of a stickler, and I want to talk about this. Moving silently is the ability to move with little sound and disturbance, even across a squeaky wooden floor, etc. Is an ability which improves with experience, of course. Moving silently and the next skill, hide in shadows, are mutually exclusive. Hide in shadows is pressing yourself into a shadowy place and remaining unobserved. Remember, all monsters, unless otherwise described, have 120 feet of infravision. The thief who presses himself into a niche in the wall and holds his breath and waits for a monster to pass before moving will remain detected. Saying, I'm going to move in shadows? No. You may move silently, or you may hide in shadows. And you think about playing the game hide and go seek. You don't just run from place to place when you might be observed by the seeker, right? So those are 2 mutually exclusive abilities. Also, they can listen at doors. Thieves have a preternatural ability to potentially hear faint sounds. If the monsters are talking about the adventurers that are crashing through their dungeon and killing their kin and stealing their treasure and how they're going to set up an ambush, this can be a great benefit to the party, having a thief who can hear noise. Now, the next skill is climb walls for thieves. Any character can climb a rough stone wall or a canyon wall or what have you, with some rope for belaying lines, some iron spikes for pythons. Maybe they've gotten a grapnel and so on. But a thieves climb walls assumes the surface is coarse and offers ledges for cracks and toe holds and handholds. But also, and this is important, smooth, sheer surfaces that don't immediately present obvious ways for them to climb. Characters who can move up and down those same walls can't necessarily move up an apparently perfectly smooth marble tiled wall. A thief can with their climb sheer surfaces. Backstabbing. When I was talking about a thief hiding in shadows and waiting for a monster to go by, the backstab is what the thief wants to do in that circumstance. Thieves are decentish fighters. A thief should never be a frontline fighter. There's a best practice for you. Thieves should not be frontline fighters. You shouldn't be up there shoulder to shoulder with the fighters, with the paladin, the ranger, or even necessarily shoulder to shoulder with a cleric. When thieves attack, it should be sneaky. It should be a blow from behind. That is the meat and drink of combat for a thief, is you should be getting in on the flanks. Use backstab all the time. If there's a swirling melee going on, and you can move silently because the 5 ogres are fighting the 5 fighting types of the party up front, ask your game master, is there enough room for me to move silently around the perimeter of the room, then go hide in shadows behind a pillar for a round, and then come rushing out and backstab one of the ogres? Now, if push comes to shove and you find yourself longsword in hand facing off against the town watch or, a couple of orcs that have managed to get around your flanks, sure, fight. Backstabbing is the key component of thief melee. You should always be doing it. Alright. Now, as your thief advances, at 4th level, you're able to read 20% of languages, and it increases by 5% every level thereafter. So your thief can look at ancient writings and decipher them. Very handy for reading a piece of doggerel or lore that might tell your party where a treasure is. And now, here's a great one. At 10th level, Master Thief, thieves are able to decipher magical writings and utilize scrolls of all sorts, excluding those of clerical, but not druidical spells. The fact that thieves do not fully comprehend magic means there's a 25% chance that writings will be misunderstood. Furthermore, magic spells from scrolls can be mispronounced when uttered, so there's an increasing chance per level of the spell that it will be the reverse of the intent. You tried to disintegrate the red dragon, you accidentally disintegrated yourself. So it comes with dangers. And it says these primary, secondary, and tertiary functions are described on a table hereafter, and we'll come to that. Thieves can create a thieves' guild, although that leaves you dealing with a present thieves' guild. And it says right here, any thief character of 10th or greater level may use his small castle-type building to set up a headquarter for a gang of thieves, and he or she will accordingly attract 4 to 24 other thieves. However, this will bring the enmity of the local thieves guild, and they will struggle to do away with a rival organization. Once begun, warfare will only end, and when and if all the master thieves on either or both sides are dead, or if the thief character removes to another locale. Gang war. That's basically Gary is setting you up for gang war right there. So let's see. Hello, Cam1138. Burglar, aka Bilbo, versus criminal is the thing. I've always leaned towards a former for my thieves, and that's fine. That is absolutely fine. I don't think you have to play Grey Mouser constantly in AD&D. I think Gary enjoyed the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories a bit, so that's why we've kind of got the blackguard type thief versus the Bilbo type thief. But I think both are completely valid ways of playing a thief. Yeah, Ricky, things blew up with notifications on YouTube. It's a long story. I'm not gonna go over it again. Itchy eye. So Ricky says, I usually handle stealth movement and facing monster with facing and monster locations. How do I handle hidden movement? Well, essentially hide in shadows and wait for the monsters to pass, and then use move silently to try and keep up with them. That's kind of how I do hidden movement. I mean, if you want to be truly hidden, either have crafted or purchase or steal, find in a treasure cache, a ring of invisibility. Thief plus ring of invisibility or cloak of elvenkind, there's your stealthy movement. But if you don't have those things, you wait for the monsters to pass, you hide in shadows, or you hide in shadows first, then you wait for the monsters to pass, then you use move silently. And we'll look at the tables for those. Yes, Cam, you're speaking my language. I dislike that rogues have been turned into nothing more than dex fighters. Yes, absolutely. Thieves are thieves. Cam says, I love the idea of having to set it up and make a major blow, but the backstab mechanic seems just weak. Well, I don't agree. You get a +4 to hit. You know, if you've a high strength thief, if you've got a couple of 18s, you're like, hey, I'm going to stick one of those over in dex and one in strength to give me a bonus to hit. Well, there you go. Oh, weaken damage. Well, you get damage multiple, though. You get damage multiple. And that's something about the backstab, is if you backstab, this is over on page 27, left-hand lower column, a successful backstab does double damage. If you backstab with a longsword, a thief can in one blow potentially take down something as big as an ogre. You know? It's versus large creature, so it's 1 to 12. So that's 2 to 24. Average hit points on an ogre are going to be their 4+1 hit die or 4+4 hit die. I can't remember off the top of my head. But your average is going to be 16. So yeah, on a really extraordinary hit with a longsword, a thief can take an ogre down. I don't necessarily agree about that. And then on higher levels, quintuple damage at 13 to 16. I mean, you got it. You love to see it. You love to see it. So let's talk about that table. I'm going to open this up a little bit so we don't have to constantly zip back and forth. And yes, I do agree with you that the spells thing is pretty cool. And we're going to talk about some race bonuses that kick in, and then we're going to look at at what Dex does for you on these. So as you can see, if you look at level of the thief, you know, I should let's see, just do this. Oops. We'll just highlight this here. It's gonna highlight lots of stuff. Now hit the highlight. Oh, no. All right. Well, anyway. But as we look at the low-level thief, the low-level thief's skills are not great. You've got a hard row to hoe as a low-level thief. You know, I was talking about all these great things you can do. Right now, the only thing the low-level thief can do really exceptionally well is climb walls. Pickpocket, 1 in 3 chance, little less than 1 in 3. Open locks, 1 in 4. Find remove traps, 1 in 5. Move silently, well, 15%. That's the best expression. Hide in shadows, 1 in 10. Hear noise, 10%. So these functions, I'm not calling them skills, these functions that a thief can undertake, you don't get Christmas right off the bat. But we'll go back and look at the thief's XP chart. Thieves level quickly. 1251 XP is the minimum amount you need to go from first level to second level as a thief. And then your pickpockets jumps up to 35%, open locks 29, find remove traps 25, move silently 21, hide in shadows 15, hear noise 10% still. That one kind of staggers as it increases, and climb walls goes up a little bit. So it's not difficult to level as a thief and start bumping these functions' success chance up. Now, different races do different things better. Dwarves get no pickpocket bonus. Elves get a 5% bonus. Gnomes get no... I would have given gnomes the pickpocket bonus, but it may just be because they're so short. You know, they can't reach that pocket. Half-elves, 10%. Halflings, 5%. I would have flipped those. I would have given half-elves the same percentage as their sylvan parentage and halflings. Because, I mean, remember, Bilbo almost successfully picked the troll's pocket when he got their key. You know, the key that had magic mouth on it. Here now, warrior! And then half-orcs take a penalty to it with their big clumsy hands. Me am pick your pocket. Please do not pay no attention. You am have coaster. Open locks. That is the meat and drink of dwarven thieves. Dwarves get a plus 10% out of that right off the bat. Elves suffer for that. Metal, oil, mechanical things. Ew. Gnomes do okay at it, as do halflings and half-orcs. Find, remove traps. Now, this is interesting. If you remember when we looked at the dwarves may be able to detect natural earthen traps better than they can as thieves. If you're playing a dwarf fighter thief or just a dwarf thief, lean on your dwarven abilities at low levels. And you might be wondering, oh, do you give that percentage bonus? No, I don't. That percentage bonus only applies when you're using a thief function, not when you're using your dwarf natural racial abilities. But still, you've got a 50-50 chance, I think, of detecting a pit versus a 35% chance here. Use your dwarven abilities first, and then double check with your thiefly abilities. Let's see. Gnomes, 10% chance, and then halflings and half-orcs, 5% each. Moving silently, as we have discussed. Elves only get 5%. I think they could do better. Halflings get 10%, which, again, it fits in with the Bilbo model. I think this is a typo in my PDF. It just has 10%. I think it's supposed to mean plus 10%. If you've got a physical copy and you're reading along, if that's not the case, let me know. But this is Hide in Shadows. 10% bonus for elves, 5 for gnomes and half-elves, and 15 for halflings. So being a halfling thief, I mean, if you have your heart set on being a halfling fighter, I guess you can do it. But being a halfling thief is pretty awesome. I mean, there's no penalties and all bonuses. If you just look across the board, with the exception of climb walls, that's minus 15%. But even then, that's only knocking you down to a 70% climb walls out of the box. And read language, I disagree with this read languages, but you should be aware of it. It's minus 5%. Frodo and Bilbo were both highly versed in languages, so. But then the average hobbit might not be. There's a thief doing what thieves do. So there's your spread of skills and bonuses. And there's some definitions here. If you guys need any special insight into what these things might do, I will let you know. And of course, these are percentile dice. If you're new to D&D, that's the little ones that look like diamonds, the little 10-siders that go 1 to 0. Some of them may be numbered 10 to 00. But so let's look at experience points. Thieves have a very easy garden to hoe. 1251 gets you to second. 2501 gets you to third. 5001 gets you to fourth. 10,001 to fifth. 20,001. It basically just doubles until you get to 6th level. And no other classes do that. No other classes do that. And it starts to go up a little bit more. Now, you hit a serious plateau at 7th level Thief. But then that's where leveling gets harder for most other classes. And then we have our level titles over here. Oh, Thieves use 6-sided dice for hit points, so it's not bad. It's not bad. Rogue is level 1 Thief. Footpad, Cut Purse, Robber, Burglar, Filcher, Sharper, Magsman, Thief, Master Thief. So there are your level titles. Now, let's talk about Thieves and Dex. D6 hit points isn't bad either with that fast XP it should be. Yeah, it really is. Katie says, I always thought the mouse was a thief-cleric combo because he was always talking to God. Low-level cleric, but still. And thank you, Cam, for the notation, and Adam. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, Mauser. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, Katie. You're talking about the mouse from... Okay, yes, from Lady Hawk. That's an interesting take on it. I never really... Yeah. Huh. Still, he didn't do much in the way of cleric-y stuff. I think maybe... but I would let you run that however you wanted to run that. The Mouser, the Grey Mouser from the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories is where the magic-using thief comes from. Mouser starts out as a low-level magic user. And I don't basically want to get into a retelling of the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories, but he starts out as a low-level magic user, is apprenticed to a mage, and his master is killed. Mouser had learned some magics. He learned Death Spell, which I thought was pretty freaking awesome, but he only ever used it the one time. DM's fiat on that one. And he would occasionally use small cantrips and so on. But I think that Gary kind of threw that in there a little bit. But yeah, the mouse as the mouse as a cleric thief combo. Low level cleric, but still, well, so a couple of points. Some charts for hit thief versus fighter, taking XP into account. It's not bad. It's not. It's really not. You're gonna level up. You're gonna start with an average of 3 hit points, but you're gonna jump up in levels, and you shouldn't be out there as a dex fighter. Backstabbing is your jam. Cam, what are you doing, buddy? I've had a few Lankmar books on my shelf, never read them. Get all of the Lankmar stories. Read all of the Lankmar stories. Please do. They are amazing. They're wonderful. I have raved on in years past, last year, about the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories. Please do read them. They're wonderful. Let us continue, though. Let's go back and let's look at Dex and talk about the various boni. Strength. Having a high strength thief can be handy. I mean, if you've got it, I would almost say, like, if you pull 2 18s and you just have your heart set on playing a thief, put the other 18 in strength. Because Ben Bar's lift gates for a thief, or that bonus to backstab, cannot be overemphasized. Oh, let's pause here and let's look at what a thief can equip themselves with. Club makes sense. A nice little kosh for the drunken sailor to relieve him of his gambling winnings. Dagger, that makes sense. Dart, sling, and sword. Now, sword has 4 asterisks. That's not a Yelp review. A thief may use a short sword, broadsword, or longsword, but not a bastard sword or a two-handed sword. So no two-handed weapons. Thieves must wear leather armor and not equip shield. Couple things about that. If you are multi or dual classing thief with something else, the thief can wear metal armor, chain, scale, plate, ring, what have you. They can't do thief things in metal armor. The gauntlets worn and the positioning of the arms make it difficult to pick locks and disarm traps. Impossible to move silently. Impossible to pick pockets. Impossible to climb sheer surfaces like the marble wall that I mentioned before. So if you are dual classing as the proverbial elven fighter thief, and you're having a grand old time wearing your plate mail around, when it's time to do thief stuff, you've got to take a few rounds to take that armor off to do your thief things. You don't get to disarm traps and pick locks when you are wearing full armor. So for thieves, it's leather armor only. Which, if you've got a high dex, maybe a ring of protection, it's not that big of a deal. Because remember, you're not supposed to be on the front lines fighting. Dex. We're going to look at dex. Scroll up a little bit here. Dexterity. Dexterity boni. So you can see the effects of having a poor dex can for a thief. Kyle's all 10 stat having hypothetical character is going to have a really shit time as a thief. Sorry, Kyle. I said it. Until you reach a dex of 13, you're not out of the woods. Unless you're willing to put a minimum of a 13, you're taking significant penalties until you hit 12. And even then, your moving silently is lowered rather. Which, as a first level thief, is... minus 5% is huge. So, put your high scores in dex if you want to play a thief. Let's look at the 18. Let's look at the good stuff. That's plus 10% to pickpockets, plus 15% to open locks, plus 5% for locating and removing traps, plus 10% for moving silently, and plus 10% for hiding in shadows. You take a halfling with an 18 dex, you're a monster thief right out of the box. So, put your 18s in dex. If it's the only 18 you've got and you want to play a thief, put your 18 in dex. It's better to be able to avoid being hit at all than it is to soak 1 extra point of damage and go, I'm going to put this in con and get 2 extra hit points. No. If you're playing a thief, your best practice is to put dex in the highest score and stay out of toe-to-toe fights. Now, one thing that's mentioned here about that I don't know if it's here or if it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but something that should be mentioned: thieves can set traps and snares with the same percentage chance success of finding traps and snares. Given enough time, a thief can set a trap that can damage or kill monsters. So that's just something, and we'll look at that when we get into the Dungeon Master's Guide some more. So that's something to consider. That's something to keep in mind, that thieves have that ability. So thieves, they're a Swiss Army character. Find and remove traps, hide in shadows, pick pockets, open locks, climb walls, backstab. They really are a jack of all trades. The only thing they're not a master of is fighting. If you roll up a thief, if you're like, God, this sounds like the best character in D&D, I'm gonna play, some old neckbeard near me is running an AD&D game. I'm gonna roll in with my 18 dex halfling thief, and I'm gonna play him, and you stick him out there on the front line, on the scrimmage line, and he gets killed. Don't come crying to me. Let's see. Is it Kulid? Did I get that right? Kulid? Anyway, the question, is there any detail as to what the trap personnel requires? Is it you tell what type of trap you're building and the DM decides what's required? Yeah, generally speaking. If you wanted something as complex as the counterweighted clockwork mechanism that Arnold Schwarzenegger builds in Conan the Barbarian when he kills Thorgrim, he sees the helmet, he smashes the helmet with his mallet, it causes a couple of stones to drop, the trap rotates around and stabs him in the back. You're not going to do that in the 5 minutes you've got before the orcs that are pursuing you get on you. If, on the other hand, you're like, hey, I've got a pocket full of caltrops, I'm going to scatter those and then scatter some dungeon dirt over them, sure, that's fine. But if we go back to the complicated mechanical trap and you're like, I know Sir Blackheart the Evil is going to come back here, so I'm going to build the Conan trap, then I might say, okay, you're going to need logs, you're going to need an iron spike if you really want to pierce him, and it's going to take this long. And I would treat your success as a function of your ability to find and remove traps. So the first level thief is trying to build Conan's swinging spike trap. Yeah, you're not going to do such a good job. The 10th level thief is going to pull off the same trick that Conan did, potentially. Caltrops in a shallow pool. Pronounced Cooley. Oh, okay. All right, Cooley. Nice. Cam says, I've wanted to play an old school thief and paladin for a while. They don't mix. they don't mix. That is, the one dual class you cannot pull off is to be a paladin thief. I know what you were saying. You wanted to play each one. You wanted to play each one separately. But yeah, when I say just about anything can be dual class, not that. But yeah, Cooley, I hope that answers your question on what they can and can't do. Yeah, I know. Cam says, Dex, one stat to rule them all. Absolutely. Thoughts on XP progressions for Magic User Thief? If you mean multi-class, a demi-human, elf, half-elf, multi-classing as a Magic User Thief, well, it works like how every other multi-class option works. You divide the number of XP and spread them out over both classes. Now, you do hit a wall because when your other multi-class is something like magic user or fighter, and you're an elf, and we'll get into this more when we talk about multi-classing once we finish up the lessons with classes, is you stop leveling as magic user. You stuck that lovely 18 in dex, so you're going along as a thief. Just you're getting the 10% as thief. Everything's awesome. But you got another 18, and you decided not to put it into strength. You put that in intelligence, so you get to be a pretty high level magic user. You're going to stop leveling as magic user eventually at 10th or 11th level. When that happens, you still have to split. You still have to divide your XP, even though you're not leveling. So that makes it more difficult. But with that said, by the time you hit your magic user level cap, odds are you're coming on the point where you're a master thief anyway, because of how fast thieves level. Ricky, the XP wall seems to be the problem to me. Well, we'll talk about house rolling options at some point in the course, but right now, just understanding that it's there, and while it's very cool to say, I'm going to play a fighter, magic user, thief, that's cool. Your leveling up is going to take a while, because you're going to take the 1000 XP you got that pushes the human thief to near going into level 2 is just a little bump for you, because that's 300 to fighter, 300 to magic user, 300 to thief. I'm not trying to discourage playing multi-class characters. On the contrary, multi-class characters opens a door to a lot of options that you think demi-humans don't have. Just that you do pay a penalty. Cam says, I'll put in my application for the Minicon 1000 user celebration game now. Well, okay. That's awesome. We're a while from that. Although 731, guys, we're at 731 subscribers on the YouTube channel, and I couldn't be happier. I thought we were like in the low 720s, honestly, and then I looked and I was like, holy crap, just 10 new. So welcome, new folks, for coming on. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So does anyone have any questions about thieving? It's been a great chat today, despite the reaming that I got from YouTube for not sticking. That's the second time YouTube's gone weird. The first time was it last week or the week before, when on Monday at like 5 a.m, it was just like, yeah, your live stream's starting now. Wait, what? I'm still in bed. Your live stream is starting now. I'm starting your live stream. Let's see. Damien X247. You're Damien 24/7. I like it. If you want to make a fighter magic user, it might be simpler to pay for. Well, we're not about Pathfinder here. We're about first edition AD&D. So it doesn't really mesh with first edition AD&D. And it's doable as a player in first edition AD&D. So, Katie asks, "Can I make a thief cleric?" Absolutely, half-orc thief cleric. And again, when we get into multi-classing more, it'll be more more explained. But yes, you can absolutely be a thief cleric. You can start out as a cleric and dual class. Again, when we talk to dual classing. So you don't necessarily have to go the half-orc route. You can be a human and dual class that bad boy, like thief all the way up to level 8 and then jump over. But again, I don't want to muddy the waters with dual classing. Ricky asks, backstab weapon limits. I need to look at the weapon proficiency again. No. Obviously, you can't stab someone with a sling. And backstab is only for melee attacks. But club, basically anything a thief or thief combination can use. So, if you're playing the fighter thief, you can backstab with a two-handed sword. Ooh. 2 times damage against a large target with a two-handed sword on a backstab. Think about that. Think about that. That's 6d6. A fighter thief could potentially slay a sleeping... Well, anyone could slay a sleeping dragon. But could potentially slay a dragon or a giant in a single blow with a two-handed sword backstab. Consider that. Let's see. You know, I just want to say, just real quick, I was so disappointed when I saw what YouTube had done to the stream setup, and that you guys still came out in force to watch the video. It does my heart good, guys. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. That's wonderful. I love all my viewers on YouTube and on Facebook both. So I just, looking over and seeing, like, at the peak of the conversation, like 11 viewers, listeners, whatever, just that made my morning, because I was like, I said I'd do this even if there were just one person watching, but thank you, YouTube. That's how it's going to be. People are going to miss out and be like, where was your show? So thank you. Thank you, Katie. I set an alarm for 12:30 and look out for the stream. Okay. But back to questions. Will I cover Unearthed Arcana? Oh boy. We'll see. You know, I'm gonna say yes, but there's gonna be a big fat asterisk on it. And I might even treat it as an optional part of the course. Like, I'll pre-record the videos rather than doing a live stream with Q&A, and then you can watch them if you want to get into Unearthed Arcana. I may do it that. It's a long way off. And obviously I'm not folding Unearthed Arcana into these lessons. I mean, I'd still be talking about the fighter and all the fighter options, or the races and all the race options. So let's see. In that case, was use magical device a skill in 1E AD&D? Use scroll is. And there are some magic items, and we'll look at this when we get it. You bring up a very good point, Damien. Thank you. There are rings and wands and scrolls that are all available to many classes. A thief with a wand of magic missiles would be dangerous. Shopspay Kalupis, bam! You know, with a wand of magic missiles. You know, you're putting buckshot in Voldemort, buddy. And as I mentioned, the ring of invisibility, a thief with a ring of spell storing, and he's got a friendly magic user. He can he can get to recharge that thing periodically. Hell yeah. There's all kinds of magic items that thieves can use, that all classes can use. And there are many ones that are not just restricted to magic users, that again, thieves can use. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's see. I asked because D&D, my first D&D purchase was the 3rd edition Player's Guide. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Ricky says, I love playing the Pool of Radiance games. Any thought on 1E rules execution? Perfect. Jim Ward worked very closely. The first 3 or 4 Pool of Radiance games, SSI Gold Box games, were released under using the 1st edition AD&D rules. In my live stream with Jim, not the most recent one, it's a couple back. You might have to go over on Facebook to watch it. I intend to put them up on YouTube, I promise. I asked Jim about how close he worked with him. He said very closely. Very closely. They would call Jim up about rules in AD&D, and he would give him the lowdown on how it was supposed to work. So when you play the Gold Box games, at least the first few of them, you are playing, regardless of your feelings about Forgotten Realms, I'm not a fan. You are playing a first edition AD&D experience, and the DM is brutal. The DM is absolutely brutal. What do you mean by janky, Ricky? Do you mean first edition rules in general? He said, getting ready to ban Ricky from the chat. No, I'm just kidding. Or do you mean the games in general? Not because of the rules, but because of some other jank that you see. See, Katie's got the right ideas, guys. She sets an alarm for 12:30. Wait, you set an alarm for 12:30? So you just get up at the crack of noon? No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure you're already awake. You know, my kids, like, I see my kids early in the morning when I get up and I'm bopping around the house. You know, they're streaming stuff on the TV, fiddling around on their electronics, you know, talking to their friends, whatever. And then I go out after the stream and the house is just like dead silent. I'm like, what the where are they? Look in their rooms. They're asleep again. So 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Ouch. Ouch. So those games have some seriously unfair parts. The jank is because of controls. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to tell a story about Pool of Radiance. I streamed some Pool of Radiance play last year. I may go back and start over and start doing it again because video game streams on YouTube seem to get a fair amount of notice. I may do it on Twitch. I don't know. But in Pool of Radiance, I remember there was... Pool of Radiance is kind of nicely sandboxy and persistent. If you kill all the monsters in a given area, they're not going to be there anymore. And you're not even going to have random encounters depending on it. So there's a vampire in the graveyard of Flan, the city that you're clearing district by district. My party fought and killed the vampire. Now, I know from fact that the treasure in the vampire's hall is randomly selected. You can wind up with a bag of holding, which is very, very, very handy. Potentially all kinds of goodies. There's a large database of magic items that Jim and the guys at SSI software at the time programmed in. So you can potentially get a lot of cool loot. But once you open the vampire's loot, what is in the chest is what you got. It's fixed. You can't say, well, we'll close it and come back later. I left the chest untouched. And I was taught the hardest, ugliest lesson that I, as a DM, forgot. I thought computer game, not Dungeons and Dragons. I said, I'm going to come back for this treasure later because there's a lot of coins and I want to be able to haul the coins as well. I left. I later came back. That gosh darn treasure was gone. Just like it would be in a properly run D&D game, that treasure was gone in Pool of Radiance. So don't let them tell you that Pool of Radiance isn't a sandbox game. It is. It is. Stuff changes. And you can, after you accomplish the main quest, you can roam around that entire area of Forgotten Realms having random encounters and getting treasure. You just don't level anymore. Even the guild closes. Like, the guild doesn't like... Well, no, the guild doesn't close, but you can't level up anymore, so there's no point in doing certain things. So, yes, there is a bag of holding in it. Pathfinder Kingmaker. Never heard of it. Oh, I'm a come on. We're just not talking about Pathfinder rules. Was that a computer game though? Was there an actual? It seems to me that not having a Pathfinder computer game, like, they missed a boat, because when 4th edition D&D came out, Pathfinder blew up because there were people who hated 4th edition and wanted 3rd edition to continue. And it seems to me that a 3rd edition based computer game would be the way to go. It is a video game. Kingmaker is a PC game. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. It's good to know they didn't miss the boat. A bag of holdong. Well, if you need one. I tell you, I stuck my head in a Pathfinder forum once. There are some generic beings in D&D that span multiple editions, like Moloch, Asmodeus, things like that. I am not afraid to crib textual ideas from newer D&D sources if they match up with the intent and the desire that I've got for my game. So, like, I may decry largely the advancement that Greyhawk got, but if they fleshed out and clarified some things that, like, on the gods that Gary only touched on. So I was Googling one day. I'm like, I'm on a subject. And somebody asked a question on a forum. It's like, it's a Pathfinder forum, but I can go there and I can at least read because it seems to fit what I'm looking for. And so I dip into the forum, and it was like going to a mathematician's convention. They were just talking in numbers. Just numbers. It was all numbers. And I was like, are you guys interested in playing D? I didn't post. I didn't say anything. I wasn't gonna, be the rock in their pond. It was an old thread anyway. But yeah, it was just numbers. And I just, and I can only, and it's because, there are people who loved character optimization. Again, and I know I've talked face to face with a dude who plays Pathfinder, and he and I had this discussion. He said there are, like, his group wasn't this way, but he said there are absolutely Pathfinder groups where it's like, you show up, I'm playing a fighter. Okay, show us your plan. What do you mean? Show what feat are you going to take at 3rd level? What feat are you going to take at 6th level? What skills are you taking? Yada yada. And they basically, like, if your character wasn't built properly, this group didn't want to game with you. Oh well, I thought I'd play a fighter. Maybe take a level of magic user at some point. Oh no. No, that's not optimal. So yeah. Greyhawk only translates into 1E AD&D and nothing else. I certainly think that there are some things that kind of fit up to it. And actually, we'll talk a little bit about that. To try and embrace all campaign stuff in the lessons of AD&D. I mean, because just in 1st edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, I'm not talking about 2nd edition. just within the realm of 1st edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. There's Greyhawk, Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, Lankmar, Hyboria, Conan's World, and Dark Sun. I think maybe the Aztec one, Mazteca, might have gotten in under first edition's rule umbrella also, but I'm not sure. We'll assume not. But that's 6 campaign worlds. We'd be here till 2030, and that presumes that I could acquire them and start talking about it. So anyway. That just about does it for me today, guys. I haven't done a shout out in a while. You know who today's shout out is? You guys. My shout out is to you guys. My shout out is, and if I miss a name, it's just because you haven't made a comment in the chat, but you still get my shout out. Katie, James, Adam, Cam, Cooley, Ricky, Chris, Aaron, Kevin, Damien, Awig, guys, thank you so much for going, hey, Bill's live streaming, and jumping on it. Okay? I got screwed by YouTube, but you guys still showed up. You guys still came to the show today, and we made it happen. We did it, guys. So thank you all. Damien says, I've been lucky and played Pathfinder with people. I'm always friends. Always game with your friends, if you can. You're quite welcome, Adam. Chris, get some AD&D books back, man. Go print on demand and get your classic AD&D books back. I insist. Have a fantastic day, guys. I'm going to go get some lunch. I love you all. Have a swell day. And I'm going to set up the stream and make sure that it goes up and everybody can see it this afternoon after I eat. Okay. Have a wonderful day, guys. Love you all. Be well.